Welcome to OverHERD at Career Education. This new podcast is a twice-monthly outreach from our department in which we want to tackle a variety of topics relevant to students and careers. My name is Denny Doherty, and I'm going to have Kristin introduce herself now.
I'm Kristin Sims.
Kristin is going to be joining me today, and we're going to be talking about illegal interview questions. Specifically, what is an illegal interview questions, why should you care, and what do you need to think about as far as illegal interview questions go. So let's just talk a little bit about what an interview question should do. An interview question should seek to find out if you are a fit for the position, if you can fulfill the requirements of that job, and nothing more. Okay. Interview questions should not delve into unrelated matters. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 prohibits employment discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, and national origin. And this is from an article from Monster.com. If a question does not assess someone's ability to do that job, it really shouldn't be asked. But if a question even hints at a violation of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, it really should not be asked.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, here's a fun fact for you. The U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, abbreviated EEOC, resolved 90,558 charges of discrimination in 2018 alone, and secured $505 million for victims in private, state, and federal workplaces. And this is from an article from The Balance. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Kristin for some more insight on the topic.
Well, sometimes people will ask you interview questions out of a place of kindness, actually. They just want to get to know you a little bit more and kind of know more about your background. But those questions can, like Denny was saying, still be illegal. So sometimes they might ask you a question about your marital status, like asking if you have children. That seems very, innocuous and just a nice way to get to know someone. But really, it could be a way to discriminate against you from obtaining that position. So what we want to do today is talk about the ways that you can answer that question in an appropriate manner, and also so that you have the ability to know what your rights are. So we have some further examples of illegal and legal interview questions. And some of these things could pertain to your address. So an employer can ask you how long you have lived at your current address, but they cannot ask you if you own your home or if you rent or who you live with. An employer can ask you because of a job that requires age restrictions, like working at a bar. They can ask you if you're above the age of 18, but they cannot ask you what year you were born or when you graduated high school. Another question that is commonly asked in interviews is if someone has an arrest record. That question is illegal. They are not allowed to ask you if you've been arrested. What they are allowed to ask you is if you have a criminal record. So situations like that come in, and you have to be able to know what is the intent of the question being asked. And I think that Denny's going to cover that next. Okay.
I can go ahead and talk about different ways to handle an illegal interview question, if that sounds good. Because this is something, even before working at Marshall, I would coach students on, and I've even talked about this in presentations I've done here at Marshall. But let's suppose you're at a job interview and someone pitches one of these illegal questions at you. Essentially, you have three different ways you can proceed. And we're going to talk about the three different strategies you can use, when you might want to use each one, and what are the ramifications of using each one of these three strategies. The first strategy is just to answer the question, which even if it is an illegal question, if you want to choose to go ahead and answer that, that is your right to do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's best to do that if you really want the position and the question is not super discriminatory or invasive. And kind of like Kristin had said previously, more often than not, I feel, the questions are asked that are illegal. It's more out of ignorance, sometimes maybe even getting to know you. They're probably asked for that reason more than to actively discriminate. And you could make the argument that if they're interviewing people, they should know better, but we're humans and we slip up sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So if you really want the position, it's not a super offensive question, you might choose to just go ahead and answer it and just move on with the interview. So that's option number one. Option number two is the exact opposite, and that is to refuse to answer the question. If you feel that what you were asked is highly inappropriate and it's caused you to second guess the workplace, you might want to go this route. it might hurt your candidacy for the job, but you might be okay with that. But like we'd mentioned previously, the EEOC has investigated, in 2018 alone, over 90,000 cases. So there may, if you choose to pursue it, there may be some recourse on your end as well. It's funny because those are 90,000 cases we know about. I always wonder how many more.
You don't.
Exactly. Did the person just walk away? And we'll never know. We can only speculate, but I guess it makes you wonder. But yeah, if you're asked something that's really highly offensive, and after that you're just like, I'm done with this place, I wouldn't see myself working here, then you can take a stance and refuse to answer it. The third option is, I would say, arguably the preferred option, and this is rephrasing the illegal question into a legal question. So just to review, you can answer it, you can refuse to answer it, or you can restate it, and that's option number 3. For example, if someone asks you if you're intending to have children in the near future, which big time illegal question, right. What you could do is you could rephrase that and say something like, if you're wondering if I have the time and commitment to take on the many projects in this role, then the answer is yes. So what you've done is you've kind of allowed that person to a way out of their own illegal question, and you've shown that you're excited about the workplace, you're excited about the work, the mission, the vision, and all the things like that. So this really is a win-win-win for everyone. Not only have you kind of given the person who's asked the illegal question, you've kind of politely given them a way out, but you've shown that you can think on your feet. You've shown that you are enthusiastic about that type of work, and I believe an answer like that really just says a lot about you as a candidate. In most cases of the 3 options, this is the one I would recommend. Of course, like I said, there are 2 other ways you can go, and depending upon how much you want the job, where you're interviewing, what is asked, I say even how it is asked. See, I'm a communication major. I always think about that stuff. What's the underlying? There are 3 ways you can go, but generally I prefer rephrasing an illegal question into a legal question. So do you have any final thoughts for us today, Kristin? Or?
Well, I was just thinking about the types of questions that people might have.
Yeah, by all means.
And I was, when you brought up pregnancy, that is one that that women might receive. Someone asking, "Are you pregnant right now?" Or people feeling that they have to disclose a pregnancy at the time, because that is an illegal question. You don't have to disclose that. And like you said, Denny, if it's an employer that is really pushing the issue, then you have rights on how you want to answer that. But ultimately, the best practice is to answer the intent. And like he said, the intent is that I'm able to do the job, as it's listed. And I don't have any problem with that, and just in the conversation that way. Another common question that I've seen people talk about is religion too. And in my mind, people ask about, like, what religion do you practice, because they want to know your availability. Like for holidays or certain days of the week where different people gather together depending on what you practice. So an employer is trying to figure out your availability. So when you have a question like that, you are more than welcome to answer it honestly by stating what your religion is, but you can also answer the question that they're asking, which is, my availability is, from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. or whatever time is stipulated for the position.
Oh, that's good. That's really good.
So those are kind of the common ones. Can you think of any other ones off the top of your head?
It's interesting because I, in preparation for this the other day, I printed out a sheet that had 3 or 4 pages of illegal questions, and I think we've touched on some of the big time ones that are very offensive. I know just historically, I know the one you'd mentioned was pregnancy, and this is something, just to give a little historical background on this, a lot of times in like the 70s, people would be asked this a lot. This is back, because prior to that, you didn't see all that many women in the workplace. I mean, you did, but not like you do today. In the 70s, usually when you started to see women enter the workplace, and what happened was someone would not want to hire a female for a position, have them work for 2 months, and then be off for, I don't know, 6 months, or who knows, for maternity leave. So a lot of it was their thinking from a business standpoint. It doesn't make it right, but it's not that they're really out to get a person. They're thinking of covering their offices. But like I said, again, it doesn't make it right to ask the question.
Exactly.
So I think we've covered a lot of the big ones, but if this is an area of interest, I would just encourage students to do some further research on this, because I've said this in presentations too. We could probably list 100,000 illegal questions if I don't think anyone would listen that long, but we could if we so chose, and there would still be one more you could come up with. Absolutely. So as students get ready to graduate, enter the to enter the job market. This is something I think it still happens. Like we said, 90,000 cases in 2018 that we know of. So this is something I think anyone who's wanting to work ever needs to familiarize himself with. They need to do some research on this, and they just need to know what's out there, and they need to know how to best proceed.
Yes, and when people are preparing for interviews, and you have someone maybe practicing with you, have them practice asking you these illegal questions so that you are prepared for the unexpected in case this does happen to you, so that you can practice how you're going to respond and you don't have that kind of deer in the headlights look of, did you just ask me that? You know they did. So
yeah, exactly.
But
That's
how
really
are we
good.
going to
Yeah,
answer that?
absolutely.
So that should be a part of your practice too.
Yeah, I agree. And sometimes I know I've probably been guilty of this myself when practicing with students. And sometimes I've even had people know I work in career education. They seek me out when they look for a job, and just kind of lobbing them a few cake questions. And interviews are not always cake questions. Sometimes, even if it's not illegal questions, we need to know how we respond to things that are maybe more challenging to answer. So that's some really good insight. I really like that.
And if people need assistance with interviewing, they should definitely come over to the career education department office.
Exactly. That's what we're here. I tell students I'm getting ready. It's funny. I'm getting ready to actually later this afternoon record a video for orientation. We do presentations all the time. We do a lot of outreach, but I tell students that any matters that are at least somewhat job related, we can help you with. And of course, we serve students from really prior to the time they get here. Like we meet with incoming freshmen during the summer. And then I always joke that we serve you until you're dead because we do serve alumni. There's no expiration on our services.
That's right.
Yeah, it's absolutely, again, very, very good insight. Do you have any other matters you'd like to cover today, or do you think we're in?
I think we should keep it brief for the people.
Okay.
Because they're just getting to know us. We can't overload them,
That's right. They can't handle all of our awesomeness at one time.
They can't.
I think that's what you're saying. Yeah,
that's exactly what I'm saying.
We'll assume that's what you're saying. But like I said, this has been the first edition of OverHERD at Career Education, and I want to thank you for joining us today. Again, this is a podcast. It's going to be a twice monthly outreach. So we're going to talk about a variety of matters that are related to students and employment. So we hope to hear you. I hope to see you back here next time.